Hi, Greg. Hi, everyone. Thanks for
Hi,
dialing into
Anna.
this live. Coming direct to you through both LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. For those of you that are new to this, we're going to be online for around 30 minutes, diving into the world of Veriphi and their current capital raise. Greg is going to answer your questions, and we also have a few other guests that are going to come online and respond to different questions that we have. It's awesome to see we already have 13 people watching this. So any of you watching, if you have any questions already, feel free to jump straight into the comments and pop them through. We really love getting any feedback, so likes, hearts if you're on Facebook, go for gold. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Annie Gunther, co-founder of Pledge Me. Pledge Me has been around for over 10 years, helping Kiwis fund the things they care about, from solid shampoo bars to disability technology for people needing hoists. But enough about us. Let's hear from our fabulous guest, Greg. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Verify does?
Thanks, Anna. And firstly, let me start by saying what a pleasure it has been to work with you. So thanks for organising this opportunity tonight. So Verify has developed a radically innovative solution to prevent patient harm by reducing intravenous medication error, but also at the same time optimising patient outcomes through more accurate dosing, particularly for high impact medication like IV cancer medication, oncology drugs.
And how did it get started?
It's a very long story, but essentially the short version is I met an inventor who was interested in the potential for spectroscopy, which is the analysis of light, and in this case, using that as an instrument, spectrometry. And so we've been working on this for a long time, but augmenting that these days is AI to use that data more effectively. So we
Awesome.
started initially looking at blood and then pivoted to drugs.
Awesome. And we'd like to pull on one of our first guests, Roger Lampin, to answer a few questions. As I pull him on, Greg, would you like to tell us a little bit more about Roger?
Roger's one of the smartest guys I know. He's an,
Thanks for
guy
flattery, Greg.
and enormous integrity and a lot of courage and highly principled. And as you can all see, ridiculously good looking and a connoisseur of art.
Flattery will get you everywhere, Greg.
It does.
Roger, why did you get involved with Verify?
I think that's pretty simple, really. It was radical new technology. It was in an area of great potential need, something that hadn't been done before, something that could have a huge impact on health and health safety internationally. It was a huge opportunity, both from a technology point of view, from a user point of view, the balance between the technology, the need, and the market in total. The market in total is ginormous because it has the opportunity to do what we're doing now. We started off in the compounding pharmacy with oncology drugs, but we've got the opportunity to do anything in the hospital and even in the health sector, in the home environment as well. We'll go into operating theatres, into the hospital bedside. There's just limitless potential, and therefore, the third part of this really is, as an investor, you've got a chance of joining a company that's got the potential to be hundreds of millions of dollars of value. Greg would say a billion, well, maybe, who knows? But I think the last thing I'd like to say on this is that it's been a long journey and it's been a hard journey, but with Greg's persistence and with technological innovation, it's become even easier, although it's really difficult, to make this actually happen. And we've got our first client and we've got really good working technology. So in a simple terms, that's why I'm here.
Amazing, Roger. We had another question that I don't think I'm going to ask you because you definitely covered in that response. But I want to ask just quickly, what is your background coming into this? Because you have a really interesting background that relates to what Verify does, right?
in some ways, I'm not a technical person, which presents some challenges understanding all the tech stuff that we do. I understand it on an overall level, but not on a detailed level. Um, my background, I've got a master's degree in geography, would you believe? But then I've been in recruitment sector for a long time, including co-founding Geneva Health, which became the second largest healthcare staff support company in the country. I've been involved in other startups, some of them successful, some of them not successful, as is always the case. But this one is something that is well worth backing. It's been a hard road, and we need more passionate investors to join us, basically. So that's a simple answer, I think.
Awesome. And you've got tech people around you to help with the tech part, right? And we're going to hear from one of them soon. But Greg, is there anything else that you want to ask Roger before we move to the next question?
How would you recommend new investors look at Veriphi in terms of judging success?
Well, I think success is improving our technology all the time, having a market presence where we've got reputable organisations enrolling and using our product, and that's the key. So as long as we've got, but then to make that happen, we've got to have funding, and funding's what this is all about with PledgeMe.
And at just one point, Roger sort of tapped into something there, which is one of the reasons we're raising the money, but why the opportunity is right now, is essentially with engineering being augmented by AI, we've made massive strides in the past few years, to the point we've got working technology, and been approached by one of the largest hospital groups in Australia, St Vincent's Healthcare, who are the largest not-for-profit health and aged care provider in Australia. So we've not only got good customer support, but the technology is working on a daily basis in their premises for something that's got 8 granted US patents and over 22 granted international patents. So it's an exciting point that we're at now, that we the reason why we persisted all of this time. And so to get there is very exciting. And so that's the kind of urgency around taking advantage of the opportunity.
The opportunity right now. Awesome.
Yep.
Which we're going to move to now. Thanks, Roger. We might pull you back in as we keep going, but we'll put you back in the green room now. So Greg, can you tell us a little bit more about your current campaign? What are you raising for?
So essentially we're raising $2 million, and that's to accelerate and cement the good work that's going on with St Vincent's. The sales and marketing aspect has been really interesting, because St Vincent's Hospital is a flagship organisation in Australia. So we've had approaches from 2 of the largest healthcare organisations in Australia for this technology. So our marketing is really word of mouth recommendation. And serendipitously, it's led us to some really major accounts. So it helps for us validate the reason why we did it in the first place, but makes us excited about the potential acceleration from that point. So essentially, 3 things to make St Vincent's go well: to bring on board new large customers and prepare ourselves for a Series A round at hopefully a higher valuation.
Awesome. We have a question in the chat just quickly asking, are your patents for New Zealand or for more countries?
Yeah, so we file multi-jurisdictional patents. So we've got 8 granted in the US, and then outside of the United States and New Zealand, granted in most Western economy jurisdictions. We've also been starting to patent in mainland China as well.
Amazing. We've got about 20 people watching this across a few different places. If you have any questions, do pop them through like Jackie did, and we'll ask them straight away. And Greg, it's been a big year with St. Vincent's. Can you talk about what you've achieved so far?
Yeah, well, our first engagement with St Vincent's is we trialed what we call a flushing cell analyzer in the pharmacy, and then from that really realised that we had to accelerate the growth of our consumable analyzer. So we got initial market feedback. We've now put the consumable analyzer into the market. We've surveyed all the staff. We understand what their issues are, and it makes us even more excited about the fact there's really an unmet need. So on a day-to-day basis, it means that every day we see live, and this is our office, not a backdrop, that on a large screen we see the tests as they do them. If there's anything abnormal, we have a WhatsApp chat group that we talk to them about. So we're essentially building out the library as we come to become more familiar with how they're using it and what the advantages are. So Richard, who you'll hear from in a second, the software team have done an amazing job in terms of responding to some of the issues that a novel user will require. And we've got a whole series of plans to improve the device stretching forward.
And one of the exciting things is people are seeing what's happening with St. Vincent, right? Other hospitals are now getting in touch as well.
Yes, yeah, that's been hugely exciting, and obviously I can't talk about that. But when we started, I thought that we would be looking at some small veterinary pharmacy in Geelong or something just to get somebody to use the analyzer. So I guess when you take a long enough journey, good stuff, really good stuff does happen. So that gives us an enormous amount of confidence about being able to scale to large enterprise sales and multiple sites, which has all the benefits of requiring less capital to get more revenue.
Awesome. We have a technical question. I might bring Richard onto the stage right now to help respond to it. Would you like to quickly introduce Richard, Greg?
So Richard is as you can see, incredibly good looking as well, and been the real driving technical driver of the commercial technology we see before us today. So he's got a background in engineering management, and an engineering degree in electronics.
Amazing.
Did I cover that well enough, Richard?
Yep, that's good enough. Otherwise, I'll get redder and more embarrassed if you talk more.
That was the idea.
Before we jump into the set question, there's a question here from Chantel asking around the revenue stream related to the connectors for the system, which I think, Chantel, you might mean the consumables.
Yep.
Are there any other consumables that are compatible with the device, or is it novel and needs to be obtained through Veriphi?
Richard.
It's a proprietary device. So we have the analyzer, which is basically an extremely complex sensor. And then we have a range of consumables. You probably can't see that. That's one type. It can be like that, or it can be integrated into an intravenous bag. So those consumables all have our patented cell as part of those products. So it's a proprietary consumable product with recurring revenue attached to it.
But it connects with other parts in the delivery channel.
Yeah, it has standardized medical lure connectors on either end, so they can attach, as you can see, or possibly not see, a standard syringe, standard closed system transfer device connectors for cytotoxic drug use, a giving set, an IV bag. It's all industry standard interconnected.
So essentially our goal is anything that is a delivery mechanism for intravenous drugs has the potential to, will be supplying the components that enable drug delivery. So IV bags, IV lines, initially connectors that can work with anything.
Awesome. So Richard, we have another question for you are there any technical reasons that challenge Verify's potential for success?
I wouldn't say they were technical issues of themselves. We've got a very good technical roadmap going out for 12 months at least to refine and innovate and add enhanced features and functionality to what we already have. At this stage, I would say the only challenge, if you like, is not doing them as fast as we'd like to. It's not as if we don't know what we're doing. We do know what we're doing. It's just that we can only do a certain amount at a certain time because obviously, as Roger referred to, funding is the key break on, doing more things at the same time.
There's a question here from Jude asking, the analyzer and medicine supplier are all done in the same machine?
Sorry, what was that? Can you repeat?
The analyzer and medicine supplier are all done in the same machine was the question.
The medicines
Supplier.
Delivery.
So what typically happens with, for example, St. Vincent's is they receive from their suppliers the drugs that they're going to use as ingredients to make up whatever has been prescribed for their patients for the day. We would then be used, our analyzer is then used to verify whether the small sample taken from that drug that they have reconstituted is actually what they think it is that they have made, and it's at the right dose. So we don't manufacture the neat drug, if you like, if it's a powder or a liquid. We would test or verify once it's been reconstituted with its diluent, whether it's saline or water or glucose, that sort of thing.
Awesome, thank you. And Richard, what excites you the most about this opportunity?
Apart from building a very successful company, I'd have to say just all of the, as I mentioned before, there's a 12-month plus roadmap of technical innovation that is exciting to get to, and everybody likes getting their teeth stuck into things and seeing the successes and building on what we've already achieved. So, yeah.
Awesome. There's one more technology question for you in the chat from Chris asking, how would you describe the big picture benefits of this technology for patients?
Well, the good thing about this technology is at the moment we're starting at the compounding pharmacy end of the ecosystem. However, once that drug has been prepared and verified using our system, it can then head off on its pathway to the patient. When it gets to the patient, as Roger mentioned at the beginning, we can have one of our analyzers, obviously not this one, but one of our bedside pole-mounted analyzers that is used to, in real time, as the patient has been administered that drug, verify that it hasn't, for some reason, degraded or become contaminated or whatever. So we can actually be at both ends of that life cycle and all the way in between.
Awesome. And that's a future goal, right? That you can test it at both ends and make sure that it's working correctly.
That's part of the product roadmap.
There are so many questions coming through now. We might thank you, Richard, and we might bring you back in if we need you. Is there any other questions, Greg, from you, though, for Richard before I let him go?
Oh, no, I think we'll have opportunity. Clearly, he enjoys his work, so he's got a whole sandbox of toys to play with. And I guess the toys that we are playing with are ones that save lives and improve patient outcomes. So principally, in answer to that previous question, the two things are reducing patient harm from medication error. It's widely accepted that around 3% of hospital patients are harmed through preventable medication error. And the other is improved patient outcomes through optimizing dose accuracy. And so working with cancer drugs, it's a very narrow therapeutic index, which means it's fine line between harm and cure. So if we can moderate the dose given to the patient and predict by using patient monitoring equipment, the risk of an adverse event, not just a drug error, ultimately we accelerate the pace with the chance of patients, particularly cancer patients, getting better. So the guys have fun with the technology, but they understand the why of the whole thing.
We have a question here around what are the barriers for entry for a new competitor, a new entrant to the market?
I think one of our advantages is very few people, particularly in the corporate world, you wouldn't have a development project that survived 15 years typically. There are multiple layers of technology to onion layers and problems to be solved around getting the sample to a point where it's giving information and not noise. So it's not a trivial thing technically. You can't look at the analyzer and just say, oh, we'll put this widget here and that there. So essentially we've got a sustainable competitive advantage, not just through patents, but through the complexity of the analyzer to grow the business before anyone comes close to having something that might be a competitor. And if they did, we've got powerful patent protection. So our goal is to grow as quickly as possible.
Awesome. We have another question. I'm actually going to show it because I'm not sure I could do it justice saying it. From David, is there a potential for use in the pharmaceutical industry to analyze
parenterals?
Yes, during the production process.
Yes. So parenterals, for people not sure, is primarily nutrition that's given to patients intravenously.
Awesome. We have a few more questions that we're actually going to come to as we go. I think maybe we move to our next guest, Gunter. Greg, would you like to introduce Gunter while I bring him up on stage?
We've known Gunter for quite some time. Gunter was head of the international hospital sales and marketing business for B. Braun based in Melsungen in Germany. So we first met Gunter on his home ground. So there are few people in the world with the level of commercial expertise in this market than Gunter. B. Braun is a $15 billion primarily medical device German company and largely privately owned. So we've really been very grateful that he's decided to join the team.
Gunter, why did you decide to join the team? I want to know more. How did you get involved with Veriphi?
Yeah, first of all, in my former role at B. Braun, we worked a lot with drug admixture and fluid management and infusion pumps. And it was always a question, what is really in a bag or in a syringe you put into the pump and what the patient is really getting. And we searched at that time already for companies who can help us providing our customers at that time a good solution to know exactly what is now going into the human body. While the medication is very often personally made, so this means by a person and for a specific patient with specific concentrations. We never find a company really going straight forward. While I took over a consultant role a couple of years ago, so Greg and I met and we had some projects together. And then I stepped in as an advisor to the board first, and now as a director of the board of Veriphi. And I'm happy to support the team in all questions from marketing and sales, international. However, it's coming up, which touches my experience.
Amazing. And from your experience, how big is this opportunity for Veriphi solution?
Yeah. You need to know, while drug admixture is usually done manually. So this means you have a vial with a drug, you have a carrier, which is a bag or a syringe. You have usually saline or water for injection or glucose as a transmitter of the drug into the human body. And after admixture, you usually do not know what is in and which concentration has a fluid itself. And therefore, nobody can tell you after the preparation what is really happened with this drug. And this means that, and Greg mentioned it beforehand, that we have a lot of events, adverse events in the hospital while a patient got the wrong drug and all the wrong concentration. And therefore, it's needed to verify and to double check the result of the manual preparation before the human really gets his drug. And therefore, the Veriphi technology is the first technology worldwide who really can do so. And therefore, it's a first commercial product with St. Vincent's and in Melbourne. We introduced, and there are other hospital chains who are looking into this as well. And therefore, we are happy really to say, yes, it's proven, yes, it works. And now we can really help the patients to be more safe to get their right drugs. And while you know, if a technical solution is there, a legal obligation will definitely come up and say, oh, if there is a solution, now we will put some laws around it that pharmacies who prepare drugs or mixture drugs need to verify really that this drug is the right one, and not sending these drug to an external laboratory, wait 3, 4, 5 days, getting the results back. No, they can do it directly beside their workbench. So the one technician prepare the drug, another technician is double checking the concentration, and if the right drug is in the right, with the right volume, or in the prepared bags or syringes. So therefore, in the end, honestly, each or all pharmacies who prepare drugs need at one point of time a verification on site, because it's much cheaper, it's much efficient, and it's much more in time in their timely process to serve the patient. So therefore, the opportunity is huge. We need definitely some laws around it, and this typically starts in the United States, in Australia, then New Zealand, Europe are definitely following. And it's the same like for the closed system transfer device, for example. You have to have a drug transformation into the human body without touching from a human body's hand some bits and parts, some connectors. And only while the technology was available, laws are now in place that these devices needs to be used. Otherwise, it's an obligation of the hospital to take care for all the risks and for the damages they really produce. Therefore, opportunity is huge, and you are invited to join us in this exciting journey.
Awesome. Thank you, Gunther. We have another question for you that I'm going to bring up. What do you think the investment appetite in Germany will be with their higher quality health system to use a technology like Veriphi?
I think while we have Western European standards, so it will be mandatory to double check these drug preparations on site. So not using today they use laboratories, but if you need to prepare drugs, and these drugs are going into the ICU, so this means a patient needs urgently the prepared drugs. You cannot wait for 4 or 5 days for a verification if this drug is really rightly prepared. So therefore, you need to carry out this immediately, and therefore Germany, US, all Western European countries need to have this solution on site, and it supports their quality they have already. So and the patients are even more safe to get their right drug and doses.
Awesome. Greg, did you have anything else for Gunther right now?
No, because I think we've got quite a few questions, so I'm sure there's some more for Gunther.
Awesome. Okay, we'll keep going. Gunther, thank you. We might bring you back before the end of this. Appreciate you joining us. We have another question here from Chantel asking, how much wastage is lost in the Verify process? I.e., if someone is getting 560 milligrams and some is taken out, will the patient not get some of the drug?
Yeah, so the volume of the drug sample for the drug sample in the cuvette's typically around about 0.7 mils.
And could you just confirm for people how quickly you can complete these tests? Gunter said it could take days if people were sending a test off site. What's the speed that Verify is going now?
At the moment, it's in minutes, but ultimately we want to bring it down to seconds. So essentially get to a point where it's less than a minute, and then closer to the patient. Obviously, where if you're an anaesthetist in a theatre, you don't want to be standing there if the patient urgently requires the drug. So then the onus is to make it faster, and that's not can it be done. It's just, as Richard was pointing out, just time and money. So the key thing for us is our surveys at St Vincent's and other hospital pharmacies is, they're very concerned about patient safety. It's their top priority. But what you've got to have is something that's not disruptive in terms of existing clinical practice and slows things down, and it's obviously too costly as well.
Awesome. We have another 2 questions at least in here. One is around what's the minimum amount of funding that you need to make the next step?
Minimum, well, we ultimately want to raise $2 million. $2 million essentially is a runway with our current planning of about 12 months, and typically we'll be looking to double that again in the following year. So something less than $2 million is essentially, with that money, we'd try and make sure that we had maximized our success with St Vincent's to make it a more compelling proposition.
Awesome. We have a few more questions written and a few more questions here, but if anyone else has any questions, we have about 25 people watching this. Please do pop them in the chat and we'll get to them before we let everyone go. I'm going to move to Peter's question next. Congrats, Greg and team. After this $2 million raise, what's next step in terms of funding? Which markets are you targeting next? Is the US on the radar?
In terms of funding, our priority is really Australia and New Zealand. There's quite a large number of life sciences funds in Australia. I mean, my goal, personal goal, and it's the ambition of the shareholders as opposed to just me. My preference is to make a large New Zealand domiciled company of a valuation of over $1 billion, and for New Zealanders and Australians to be the beneficiaries of that, rather than necessarily having to the United States when we become successful. So our focus, Peter, is primarily Australian and New Zealand life sciences funds. And since quite interesting, particularly this week, with St Vincent's, it's become easier to talk to people. Because the fact that they've come to us and there's more interest, you can say, well, what kind of buy-in do you get? Well, when you're getting some of the largest players in Australia coming to you, clearly they see the need.
And so that's a response in terms of funding, but in terms of delivering your technology,
yep.
What's the plan around the US?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, so as you'll see in the IM, our goal is sort of three steps. Step 1 is to get St Vincent's working properly. Step 2 is to expand to some other large accounts, and then once we go beyond those at the same time, to try and have a pilot in the US in 2026. So one of the things that when people talk about compliance being a problem and the hurdles of compliance, and our strategy was advised to us by the US FDA, who saw a big opportunity for this in compounding pharmacies. So recently, the FDA has taken over compliance responsibility for sterile compounding pharmacies because of a major tragedy where tens of people were killed from drug contamination because the jurisdiction wasn't clear. So they have an act called the Drug Quality and Security Act, a 10-year program that's about to conclude, requiring more transparency and governance in compounding pharmacies. So what that means is we can get into the United States and have high revenues without necessarily requiring medical device compliance, but then being there with strong revenues, we're able to expand with a device approval into beyond the compounding pharmacy and into the clinical areas and ED, ICU and OR. And our focus initially will be on the major cancer hospitals in the US, the flagship hospitals.
Awesome. I have a question here around valuation. Should I bring Gunter and Roger into this as well?
Sure.
Gunter, Roger, I'm bringing you back on. And I'm going to put the question up from Ernesto. And he's asking around the valuation, considering the sales are forecast in FY28. Can you just talk to hitting that valuation?
Well, Greg could probably talk to how we came to that valuation. However, there's a major company, Katia Health, who recently raised $8 million based on a 30 million valuation. It's a radical new health technology, but to get to the market is years away. So that was the most comparative option that we took into account. But it's very hard. Greg could talk about the actual way we came to that. If you keep it simple, Greg, and then maybe Gunter could add his bit as well.
Yeah, I guess the way to look at it is what's the future value of the company and where they are now, anticipating what growth is possible. So if you say that we've got a device that has a low compliance hurdle, is protected by a strong portfolio of patents, has a major market opportunity. Gunter was talking about the 30 IV doses administered per second, 24 hours a day in US hospitals. So it's this huge opportunity. Then you could argue potentially that the company is undervalued. And one of the reasons that we arrived at 29 to 30 million was that we think once we achieve our goals with this 2 million in terms of bringing on board these other customers, that we'll see a trajectory that will excite follow-on investors. And so we wanted to recognize that and not really underselling what we'd achieved.
Yeah, in the question, it's already written that the opportunity is really large. So 4,500 hospital. However, you can do this only step by step. And what we are approaching currently, or where we get approached, are from big hospital chains, and these chains are working international, and this gives us a very easy lift as well into the US, like Greg already explained. So it will be a big account sale, so to say. So we will look into key accounts strategically and politically as well, who helps to drive all the legal obligations to bring them in place. And therefore, it will be a step-by-step approach. And the first one is always hardest, which we achieved already, and now the others are on the way to be served, and we are looking forward really to get a big footprint into this.
I'd add to that the approach is primarily following the lowest hanging fruit. So, for example, St Vincent's, with the name St Vincent's, a flagship hospital group in Australia. We expect the likes of MD Anderson or Memorial Sloan Kettering or Mayo Clinic similarly to have a brand that's worth protecting, particularly in the cancer space. And people are traveling all over from the United States to go to those hospitals with specific cancer. So we can see a sales strategy, but it's a little bit like saying not wanting to play the small game. I was at a meeting with Peter Beck last night, me and about 300 other people, and saying, let's aim for the $1 billion opportunity. Who would think we would be the third country in terms of rocket launches behind the United States or Russia? Who would think that you'd have a motion picture industry in Wellington? All of those things would seem totally fanciful. So there's no reason why we can't be a big player in this space.
And just one thing quickly to add is the goal isn't 4,500 hospitals right now. The total opportunity across the 3 markets is around 2,000, but the goal by FY29 is 120 analyzers. That's not even hospitals. So there's a pathway to growth, right? We have one more question from Ernesto, which was slightly answered earlier, but saying that it seems the majority of the income will come from the consumables. How easy is that to achieve considering current market players? And could these be replicated later down the track off patent?
I think that Richard could talk at length about that, but we, and you might want to bring him in if there's further discussion, but
he's on here now.
Yeah, Richard, maybe you want to answer the consumable question in particular.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, the consumable technology, which is patented, is at the heart of the consumable suite of products. And I just mentioned 3 earlier. As far as when they come off patent, are they copyable? No, because we have embedded proprietary technology in them, which makes them useless unless they're ours. So that those revenue streams are protected by that technology, and the technology can't be copied because it's encrypted. So we've put in a huge amount of effort to make sure that not just the consumable revenue stream, but also our analyzer revenue stream or analyzer product suite revenue stream, and also all of the value adds that come out of our Veriphi customer portal, like reporting and notifications, all of these other additional features, they're all able to be generating revenue.
Awesome.
So one of the, I guess the 2 reasons why a hospital will want to buy into that scenario is A, improve patient outcomes, which is the driver for St Vincent's, but also significantly reducing the cost of, and particularly compliance costs of medication preparation and delivery. So we're using smarts actually to make it less costly to deliver safe drugs to patients.
Awesome. If anyone has any more questions, we've got a few more minutes to go. Please pop them in the chat. We've got 2 more questions for you, Greg. The first one is, what are your plans for exiting the business?
I guess the 2, we don't really have any plans to exit the business. The 2 most obvious things would be for shareholders would be a trade sale or a public listing. Our focus is on building a highly scalable, successful business as quickly as possible, and to persuade our shareholders that if they hang in there, that the increase in value and their capital gains will be so much higher with a little bit more patience.
Awesome. And my final question is, if someone's interested in investing, what do they need to know?
I think they should go on to the offer on the Pledge Me page, and the minimum is an investment of $2,000 and become a part of the unstoppable team Verify.
Awesome. We had so many questions tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for dialing in, asking your questions, being a part of this. Huge thanks as well to Gunther, Roger, Richard for staying up late or getting up early to join this call and share their perspective on this as well. I've popped the link to the raise in the comment section. So if you'd like to go click through, check out Verify on Pledge Me. If you have any questions, there's a question tab. That is monitored by Greg and us, so we can make sure that you get a response directly from the team. And if you like what you see here, please share it. It's not just about pledging and investing, it's sharing this campaign wider. So anyone who's affected by cancer in their lives or sees the benefit of this technology can become a part of it. So thank you, Greg, for sharing your story and for creating this company. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we close off?
Yeah, thanks, Anna, again for the help that you've provided to us, for the people on and thank you to all the people from our team who are not only for Gunther and Roger and Richard, but we've got the whole team watching tonight. And for the people who are interested or they've got some thorny question or something they want to ask, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to chat by phone or in person to anyone who wants to find out more.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Catch you
Anna.
later.
See ya. Bye.